Hello everyone. Tonight, we're descending into a place where evolution stopped playing by the rules. A place where sharks don't look like sharks anymore. Where teeth number in the hundreds, jaws launch forward like biological missiles, and some individuals have been alive since before the Mayflower landed in America. We're talking about the deep sea sharks, the ones most people will never see, the ones that shouldn't exist but do anyway. So before we dive into this nightmare parade, hit that like button. Subscribe if you want more content about creatures that make you question what's really swimming in the dark. Only if you're genuinely into this stuff though. And drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is. I'm always curious to know if there are people in Tokyo or Toronto losing sleep over prehistoric sharks at 2 a.m. Now dim those lights, get comfortable, because where we're going, comfort doesn't exist. Evolution traded comfort for survival, and survival in the deep ocean requires becoming something else entirely. Let's meet the monsters. It's 2017. Portuguese fishermen are conducting a routine trawl off the coast of the Algarve, about 2,300 feet below the surface. They're targeting commercial fish, standard work, boring even. Then the nets come up, and tangled in the catch, thrashing weakly, is something that doesn't belong in this century. It's roughly 5 feet long, dark brown, almost black. The body is eel-like, serpentine, completely wrong for a shark. The head is small and snake-like, and the mouth, oh God, the mouth. When it opens, which it does constantly because the creature is suffocating, the fishermen see rows upon rows of needle-like teeth, not shark teeth, something else, something older, 300 teeth arranged in 25 rows. All of them recurved, backward-facing, designed to trap prey that tries to escape. This is a frilled shark, Chlamydocelicus anguineus, a living fossil that has remained virtually unchanged for 80 million years. It swam alongside Tyrannosaurus rex. It survived the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs. It witnessed the rise and fall of countless species. And here it is, dying on the deck of a fishing boat, looking exactly as it did when plesiosaurs ruled the seas. The frilled shark gets its name from the 6 pairs of gill slits that stretch across its throat, giving the appearance of a frilled collar. But that's where any elegance ends. This is not a beautiful animal. It's a creature designed by evolution to hunt in absolute darkness at depths between 390 and 4,200 feet, where pressure crushes normal fish and light doesn't penetrate. Its body is built for ambush. Long and flexible, it can curl like a snake, coiling its tail against rocks and then lunging forward with surprising speed to engulf prey whole. Those 300 teeth aren't for chewing. They're for holding. Once something enters a frilled shark's mouth, it's not leaving. The teeth hook backwards, each one a barbed needle that prevents escape. Squid, other sharks, deep sea fish, all of them end up in the frilled shark's stomach, swallowed whole thanks to jaws that can unhinge to accommodate prey up to half the shark's body length. And then there's the reproduction. Frilled sharks have possibly the longest gestation period of any vertebrate on Earth. Up to 3.5 years, 42 months of pregnancy. That's longer than elephants, longer than any mammal. The pups develop slowly inside their mother, feeding on yolk, growing in darkness, until finally they're born fully formed and ready to hunt in the abyss. Why such a long gestation? Nobody knows for certain. The deep ocean is food scarce. Energy is precious. Maybe the extended pregnancy ensures the pups are large enough, strong enough to survive the moment they're born. Or maybe it's just another mystery in a species defined by mysteries. Because despite being discovered in the 19th century, we know almost nothing about frilled sharks. Their population size, unknown. Their hunting patterns, speculation. Their social behavior, non-existent as far as we can tell. They're solitary creatures that occasionally cross paths, but never seem to interact. Most encounters with frilled sharks are accidental. Fishing nets haul them up from the deep. Research submarines spot them occasionally. In 2007, a sick or injured frilled shark was found swimming in shallow water in Japan. It died shortly after being transferred to a marine park, unable to survive outside the crushing pressure of its natural habitat. Every specimen tells us something, but we're collecting data at a rate of maybe 1 or 2 sharks per year. At that pace, understanding them fully will take centuries, if they survive that long. Which brings us to the uncomfortable truth. Frilled sharks are being killed as bycatch in deep-sea fisheries. They're not targeted deliberately. They're just in the wrong place when nets drag across the seafloor. And because their reproduction is so slow, their populations can't recover quickly from losses. In 2016, the IUCN designated them as near threatened. That's conservation speak for heading toward extinction, but not quite there yet. The clock is ticking. And most people don't even know these animals exist. Now let's talk about a shark that makes the frilled shark look normal. Meet the goblin shark, Mitsukurina austoni. If the frilled shark is a relic from the age of dinosaurs, the goblin shark is something from a fever dream. Picture this. You're in a submersible, descending through the water column off the coast of Japan. The lights illuminate particles drifting in the current. Fish dart past. Everything seems normal. Then, at about 900 feet, something appears in the lights. It's pale, pinkish grey. The skin looks almost translucent, but that's not what catches your attention. What catches your attention is the nose. A long, flat, blade-like protrusion extending from the shark's head like a sword. The snout is ridiculous, disproportionate, utterly alien. You're still processing this when the shark detects your presence. Its jaw, which you thought was tucked normally under its head, suddenly shoots forward. The entire jaw assembly extends outward, projecting almost 10% of the shark's total body length in a fraction of a second. Needle-like teeth snap at the water in front of it. The jaw retracts, and the shark drifts away into the darkness, leaving you wondering if you just witnessed a real animal or a hallucination. That's the goblin shark. Discovered in Japanese waters in 1898, it was named Tenguzame, after a mythical Japanese creature with a long nose and demonic appearance. The English translation became goblin shark, which is somehow both less and more disturbing. The pink coloration isn't pigment. It's blood vessels showing through semi-translucent skin. The shark is essentially see-through. You're looking at its circulatory system. In the deep ocean, where red light doesn't penetrate, this pink coloration makes the shark nearly invisible. It drifts through the water like a ghost, that absurd nose leading the way, hunting for prey it detects not through sight, but through electroreception. That nose, as ridiculous as it looks, is covered in ampullae of Lorenzini, specialized sensory organs that detect the minute electrical fields generated by living organisms. Every fish, every squid, every crustacean produces electricity through its nervous system. The goblin shark's elongated rostrum gives it a larger sensor array than almost any other shark, allowing it to detect prey from greater distances. Once prey is located, the goblin shark employs what researchers call slingshot feeding. The jaw mechanism is unique among sharks. Most sharks can protrude their jaws slightly when biting. The goblin shark takes this to an extreme. Ligaments attach the jaw to the skull in a way that allows the entire structure to shoot forward with incredible speed. High-speed footage captured by Japanese researchers shows the jaw extending in less than 0.3 seconds, traveling at speeds up to 3.1 meters per second. That's the fastest jaw strike recorded in any fish. The motion creates a suction effect. As the jaw extends and the mouth opens, water rushes inward, dragging prey along with it. The needle-like teeth then snap shut, impaling whatever got caught in the trap. The prey, usually a deep-sea fish or squid, has no chance to escape. It's skewered on multiple teeth simultaneously. Then the jaw retracts, pulling the meal back into the shark's mouth, where it's swallowed whole. The entire process takes less than a second. Blink and you'd miss it. But if you saw it, you'd have nightmares for weeks. Because there's something profoundly unsettling about a jaw that exists independently from the skull, a biological mechanism that seems like it should belong to an insect or an alien, not a vertebrate. Goblin sharks are sluggish swimmers. Their bodies are soft and flabby, filled with low-density oils that provide neutral buoyancy. They don't chase prey, they drift. Energy conservation is critical in the deep ocean where food is scarce, so the goblin shark has evolved to be a patient ambush predator. It hangs motionless in the water, that ridiculous nose pointed forward, waiting for something to wander into range. And when something does, the jaw launches. Game over. We know very little about goblin shark reproduction. A pregnant female carrying 6 pups was captured in Taiwan in 2023, confirming they're viviparous, giving birth to live young. But gestation periods? Unknown. Mating behaviors? Never observed. Population sizes? Pure speculation. Like most deep-sea sharks, goblin sharks exist in a realm so remote and inhospitable that studying them is nearly impossible. Most specimens are bycatch, accidentally captured in fishing operations. Each one provides a little more data, but it's not enough. We're piecing together the life history of an entire species from fragments, glimpses, corpses. And then there's the megamouth shark, Megachasma pelagios. If the goblin shark is alien, the megamouth is absurd. This shark wasn't discovered until 1976. 1976. Less than 50 years ago. A US Navy ship off the coast of Hawaii accidentally snared something in its anchor. When they hauled it up, researchers thought they'd found a new species of whale. It was massive, nearly 15 feet long, weighing over 1,600 pounds, with a mouth that could swallow a garbage can. But it wasn't a whale, it was a shark. A filter-feeding shark that nobody knew existed despite the fact that it's the size of a car. How do you miss discovering a 15-foot shark until the late 20th century? By living in the deep ocean and never coming to the surface, except occasionally when something goes wrong, or when you get tangled in a Navy ship's anchor. Since 1976, there have been only around 100 confirmed megamouth sightings worldwide. 100. For a shark that grows to nearly 18 feet and lives in every major ocean. That's how rare they are. That's how little we see of them. The megamouth earned its name honestly. The mouth is enormous, taking up most of the front of the shark's head. It's soft and rubbery, lined with what was long believed to be bioluminescent tissue. For decades, scientists theorized that the megamouth used glowing tissue inside its mouth to lure plankton, essentially creating an underwater light trap. Plankton, attracted to what they think is bioluminescent algae, swarm toward the light and get filtered out of the water by the shark's gill rakers. It was a beautiful hypothesis, elegant, perfectly adapted for deep-sea hunting, and it was wrong. In 2020, researchers conducted detailed histological studies of megamouth tissue. They found no functioning bioluminescent organs, none. The glow that observers reported was actually light reflection. The inside of the megamouth's jaw is covered in specialized denticles, tiny tooth-like scales that reflect wavelengths across the entire visible spectrum. When light hits these denticles, whether from bioluminescent plankton or from research submersibles, it reflects brilliantly, creating the illusion of self-generated light. So the megamouth doesn't make its own light. It uses someone else's. Specifically, it uses the bioluminescence of its prey. Many deep-sea plankton, including krill and copepods, produce light through chemical reactions. The megamouth's reflective mouth may act like a beacon, concentrating and redirecting this light to attract even more plankton. It's still a lure, just a passive one. The shark essentially weaponizes its prey's own biology against them. Megamouths are vertical migrators. They spend daylight hours deep, around 400 to 500 feet, where plankton congregate in dense layers. At night, the plankton rise toward the surface, following the diel vertical migration pattern observed throughout the ocean, and the megamouth follows them, ascending to depths as shallow as 40 to 80 feet to continue feeding. This means that for a few hours each night, these massive, prehistoric-looking filter feeders are swimming in relatively shallow water. Not shallow enough for casual divers to encounter them, but shallow enough that they're occasionally spotted by night fishermen or caught in surface nets. Most people who see a megamouth think they're looking at a strange whale or a deformed basking shark. It's only when researchers examine the specimen that they realize what it actually is. And each new specimen is a minor scientific event. Photos get taken, measurements recorded, tissue samples collected. Every megamouth encounter adds a few more data points to our understanding of a species we know almost nothing about. In 2023, a pregnant female megamouth washed ashore in the Philippines, carrying 7 pups. This was the first confirmed evidence that megamouths give birth to live young. Before that, we could only speculate based on the reproductive patterns of related sharks. That's how little we know. Basic reproductive biology remained a mystery until 3 years ago. Now let's talk about something that makes all the previous sharks look normal. The Greenland shark, Somniosus microcephalus, the longest living vertebrate animal on Earth. Forget tortoises, forget whales, forget anything you thought could live a long time. Greenland sharks live for over 400 years, possibly up to 512 years based on radiocarbon dating of eye tissue. 5 centuries. That means there are individual Greenland sharks alive today that were born before the fall of the Ming Dynasty, before the Mayflower, before Galileo looked through a telescope. They've been swimming through the Arctic and North Atlantic oceans for longer than the United States has existed as a nation. How is this possible? How does anything live that long? The answer lies in their biology, which is perfectly adapted for the coldest, darkest, most stable environments on Earth. Greenland sharks inhabit waters between 28 and 45 degrees Fahrenheit, just above freezing. Their tissues contain high concentrations of chemical compounds that act like antifreeze, preventing ice crystals from forming in their bodies. They move slowly, almost lethargically, earning them the nickname sleeper sharks. Their average swimming speed is about 0.3 meters per second, making them among the slowest sharks on record. Everything about them is optimized for energy conservation in an environment where food is scarce and metabolic activity must be minimized. They grow incredibly slowly, adding about half an inch to 1 inch per year. One shark tagged in 1936 and recaptured in 1952 had grown only 2.3 inches in 16 years. At that rate, reaching 15 or 20 feet in length takes over a century. And sexual maturity, around 150 years of age. Let that sink in. A Greenland shark has to survive for a century and a half before it can reproduce. Gestation periods are estimated at 8 to 18 years. 18 years pregnant, humans complain about 9 months. Greenland sharks carry their young for nearly 2 decades. And then there are the parasites. Most Greenland sharks are partially or completely blind due to a parasitic copepod called Omatocoita elongata. This tiny crustacean, which looks like a pale worm, attaches itself to the shark's cornea and feeds on the tissue. The parasite is visible to observers, dangling from the shark's eye like some kind of grotesque fishing lure. Multiple parasites can attach to a single eye, causing scarring, ulceration, and eventually complete blindness. Yet somehow, this doesn't significantly impact the shark's survival. They hunt just fine without sight. Their other senses, particularly smell and electroreception, are acute enough to locate prey in the pitch-black Arctic depths. The parasites have been so successful that nearly every Greenland shark carries them. Some researchers have speculated that the parasites might be bioluminescent, glowing faintly to attract prey toward the shark's mouth. This would create a bizarre symbiotic relationship where the parasite that blinds the shark also helps it hunt. However, this theory remains unproven. Most scientists believe the sharks simply don't need vision in their environment, and the parasites are just a harmless side effect of living in deep, cold water. What do Greenland sharks eat? Everything. They're generalist scavengers and hunters. Stomach content analysis has revealed fish, seals, squid, and occasionally pieces of moose, reindeer, and even polar bears. How does a slow-moving, half-blind shark catch a seal? The leading theory is ambush predation. Seals sleep in the water. A drifting Greenland shark, nearly invisible in the dark, could approach a sleeping seal and strike before the mammal realizes the danger. Once caught, the seal has no chance. The Greenland shark's jaw has a unique rolling mechanism. The upper teeth anchor into the prey while the lower jaw saws through flesh, removing massive chunks. It's brutal, efficient, and terrifying. But here's the truly disturbing part. Greenland shark meat is toxic to humans. The flesh contains high concentrations of trimethylamine N-oxide, a compound that causes symptoms resembling severe alcohol intoxication. Consuming unprocessed Greenland shark meat leads to vomiting, diarrhea, stumbling, convulsions, and neurological damage. Icelandic cuisine includes a dish called hakal, which is fermented Greenland shark meat. The preparation process involves burying the shark meat for months to allow toxins to decompose, then drying it for additional months. The result is supposedly safe to eat, though most people describe it as the worst thing they've ever tasted. Anthony Bourdain called it the single worst, most disgusting and terrible tasting thing he'd ever eaten. Why would an animal evolve to be poisonous? In the Greenland shark's case, it's probably not deliberate. The TMAO is a byproduct of living in extremely cold, high-pressure environments. It helps stabilize proteins and prevents cellular damage. The fact that it also makes the shark toxic is coincidental, but it's another barrier between humans and these ancient predators. Greenland sharks are vulnerable to climate change. As Arctic sea ice melts, their habitat shrinks. Warmer waters could push them into deeper, less hospitable regions. And increased human activity in Arctic waters means more fishing, more shipping, more noise pollution, all of which impacts a species that has remained relatively unchanged for millions of years. There's something profoundly sad about the idea of these 400-year-old sharks, survivors of centuries of environmental change, being threatened by a few decades of human industrial activity. But that's where we are. The oldest animals on Earth are at risk because we couldn't be bothered to slow down. Now let's shift gears and talk about sharks that glow. Biofluorescent sharks. This phenomenon was discovered relatively recently, and it's changing how we understand shark communication and hunting strategies. Certain shark species, including the chain cat shark and the swell shark, possess biofluorescent capabilities. They don't generate their own light like bioluminescent organisms. Instead, they absorb blue light from their environment and re-emit it as green or orange light. To human eyes, in normal light, these sharks look ordinary, but under blue or ultraviolet light, they glow brilliantly. The patterns are species-specific, often concentrated around the eyes, fins, and along the body. And here's the fascinating part. Sharks can see this fluorescence. Humans can't without special equipment, but sharks have visual systems adapted to detect these wavelengths. So what are they using it for? Researchers believe biofluorescence serves multiple purposes. First, communication. The glowing patterns could help sharks recognize members of their own species in the dark. Second, camouflage. In the deep ocean, blue light is the dominant wavelength. By absorbing and re-emitting this light in specific patterns, sharks can break up their silhouettes, making them harder for prey or predators to spot. Third, hunting. Some species may use biofluorescent patterns to confuse or attract prey. Imagine being a small fish in the deep ocean. Everything is dark. Then, suddenly, you see faint green patterns moving through the water. Your brain might interpret this as bioluminescent plankton, a potential food source. You investigate, and you get eaten by a biofluorescent shark that just used your own hunting instincts against you. It's a strategy that wouldn't work in daylight or at shallow depths, but in the deep ocean, where creatures rely on bioluminescence for communication and navigation, biofluorescence becomes a powerful tool, and it's yet another example of deep-sea sharks evolving capabilities that seem like science fiction, but are simply adaptations to an alien environment. The seven-gill shark deserves a mention here too, though it's not exclusively a deep-sea species. Notorhynchus sepidianus. Most sharks have 5 gill slits. The seven-gill, as the name suggests, has 7. This is a primitive trait, shared with only a handful of other shark species. The seven-gill is a living link to ancient sharks that swam Earth's oceans 200 million years ago. They're broad-snouted, heavy-bodied, and capable of diving to depths exceeding 1,800 feet. though they're also spotted in relatively shallow waters. What makes seven gills particularly interesting is their aggressive hunting behavior. Unlike the slow, patient deep-sea species we've discussed, seven gills are active predators. They hunt in packs, working together to take down prey larger than themselves. There are documented cases of seven-gill sharks cooperating to attack and kill other shark species, including great whites. Pack-hunting sharks. It sounds like something from a horror movie, but it's real. And it suggests a level of social complexity and communication that we're only beginning to understand. So here we are, 6 species of deep-sea sharks, each one more bizarre than the last. The frilled shark, with its 80-million-year-old body plan and 300 needle teeth. The goblin shark, with its nightmare jaw that shoots forward like a biological weapon. The megamouth, with its massive reflective mouth that shouldn't have remained undiscovered until the 1970s. The Greenland shark, blind and poisonous, living for half a millennium in the frozen darkness. The biofluorescent sharks glowing in colors we can't see without technology. And the seven-gill, a primitive predator that hunts in packs. What do all these species have in common? They're survivors. They've existed, largely unchanged, for millions of years. They've adapted to environments so extreme that most life can't exist there. And they're all under threat. Deep-sea fishing is expanding. Climate change is altering ocean temperatures and chemistry. Pollution is reaching even the most remote depths. These sharks, which survived asteroid impacts, ice ages, and mass extinctions, might not survive us. Because here's the thing about deep-sea life. It's fragile. The environments seem harsh to us, but they're actually incredibly stable. Temperature doesn't fluctuate. Seasons don't exist. The ecosystem has reached equilibrium over millions of years. When humans disrupt that equilibrium through fishing, mining, or pollution, the effects are catastrophic. And because deep-sea species reproduce slowly, grow slowly, and live in such specific conditions, they can't adapt quickly to change. A population of Greenland sharks impacted by overfishing today might not recover for centuries, if it recovers at all. Frilled sharks, caught as bycatch, are already classified as near threatened. Goblin sharks, megamouths, all of them face similar pressures. And most people don't even know they exist. That's the tragedy. These creatures, these evolutionary marvels that have existed since before humanity, are disappearing. And nobody notices because nobody sees them. They're too deep, too remote, too alien for casual observation. But they matter. They matter because biodiversity matters. Because every species represents millions of years of evolutionary problem solving. Because the adaptations they've developed, from the goblin shark's projectile jaw to the Greenland shark's antifreeze blood, represent biological solutions to extreme challenges. Solutions that could inform human technology, medicine, materials science. And they matter because they're beautiful in their own bizarre way. The frilled shark is horrifying, yes, but it's also elegant, perfectly adapted to its niche, a masterpiece of evolutionary engineering. The same goes for all of them. Each species is a testament to life's ability to thrive in impossible places, to find solutions, to persist. So what can we do? For most people, the answer is frustratingly simple. Awareness. Know these sharks exist. Understand that the ocean isn't just great whites and hammerheads. There's an entire world of deep-sea species that are just as important, just as fascinating, and far more vulnerable. support organizations working on marine conservation, push for stronger regulations on deep-sea fishing, demand that governments and corporations consider environmental impacts before exploiting deep ocean resources. It's not glamorous. It doesn't feel like saving the world, but it is. Because every species we lose makes the world less diverse, less resilient, less capable of adapting to future changes, and we're losing species faster than we can discover them. There are more frilled sharks, goblin sharks, and unknown deep-sea species out there right now, swimming in the dark, living their ancient lives. Some of them will die of old age, natural predation, disease. That's normal, that's ecology. But some of them will die in fishing nets, their bodies discarded as worthless bycatch, and that's on us. We don't have to fish the deepest parts of the ocean. We don't have to mine seafloor deposits. We're choosing to do those things because they're profitable. And in the process, we're destroying ecosystems that have existed since before humans walked upright. The nightmare sharks of the deep ocean aren't nightmares because they're dangerous to us. They're nightmares because we're dangerous to them. And unlike them, we know better. We have the knowledge, the technology, the resources to make different choices. Whether we actually will remains to be seen. But one thing is certain. In 100 years, people will look back at our time and judge us based on what we chose to save and what we allowed to disappear. The frilled shark, unchanged for 80 million years, could be gone within our lifetime. The Greenland shark, which can live for 5 centuries, might not make it another 50 years. The goblin shark, the megamouth, all of them teeter on the edge. Not because they're poorly adapted, they're spectacularly adapted. But their adaptation was to a stable, undisturbed deep ocean, an ocean that no longer exists. We've reached the abyss, and instead of marveling at what we found there, we're destroying it. The nightmare isn't the sharks, it's us. If you made it this far, thank you. Seriously. You just spent time learning about creatures most people will never think about. That matters. Hit that like button if deep sea sharks fascinate you. Subscribe if you want more content about the weird, wonderful, and endangered life hiding in Earth's oceans. And leave a comment. Tell me which of these sharks disturbed you the most, or tell me where you're watching from. Either way, I appreciate you being here. Until next time, stay curious, stay aware, and remember, the monsters in the deep aren't the sharks. The monsters are the ones destroying their world.